Pilotfish presents Weight, Happiness, and Health Minute with authors Mary Sciglimpaglia-Brainard and Patricia Sciglimpaglia-Vigue, talking about the Happiness and Health Secrets Workbook. This is a workbook that was designed for one reason and one reason only, for you to learn the skills necessary to live a happier and healthier life. Please listen to the interview to let Patty and Mary tell their story and share their secrets for happiness and health. Welcome to this week's podcast, girls. I think this is so awesome that I'm able to have you on, and you're going to be one of the first shows of the reignition of this podcast, because it's gone on for a lot of years. I've had this podcast going on and off since 2006, and now we're reemerging again, and I'm very excited to have you on because I think your stories are very interesting. And I really want to get the word out about what you're doing in the world. And so I guess we'll kick it off with the first question. And that would be, can you share your story about the creation of your respective businesses and then your project together that you're working on?
You want me to go first, Mary?
Sure.
Okay. So I have my own business called E&P Therapy. Essentially, I am a talk therapist in that business, and I work with my wife. We have our own private practice. I have been through all the agencies and just kind of landed on working for myself because I like the flexibility of being able to take time off when I want to take it off and not have to follow rules that don't really make sense. And I don't know, there's a lot of perks of working for yourself. And then Mary and I have always kind of talked about having our own business. We've had a few different websites, but the most current one is Moment to Moment Health, and also known as the Happiness and Health Secrets website. We kind of have two website names for it. But this one is kind of like a passion project it's an extension of my therapy business, sort of. Although I can't call it therapy. But it's me seeing all the issues that I've brought up in therapy and kind of trying to solve those in a different way.
Interesting. And so do you see clients week to week, or kind of how does that work for your practice?
So essentially I see clients every day. Obviously the same clients maybe meet weekly, every other week, once a month, that kind of stuff. Everyone's coming from a different place on their journey, or their mental health journey. So I think our specific happy moment to moment health coaching program is more for someone who is a little bit further on their path for mental health, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, actually it does. And it really seemingly feeds into the Happiness and Health Secrets workbook. And one question I would have is, what's the most inspiring thing about that business? What is it that makes you want to go to work every day? I mean, what drives you in that business?
I feel like I know a lot of solutions to a lot of these problems. Whether it's personally, I struggle with anxiety myself. So personally, understanding the solutions, trying to help people with different solutions. But also just sometimes all you need is to listen to someone to solve their problems too. So I think that has always been my strongest strongest suit in my life. So I think that's ultimately why I landed on therapy anyway, because I can listen pretty well.
I think that's wonderful. And I think that the fact that you really understand what people are going through because you've been there, you've experienced it. I think that's a major I think that's wonderful for your clients, because a lot of times you have people that are in practice that have never been there. They've not dealt with the things that they're helping the people that they're working with deal with. And so I think that's wonderful.
I tell my clients all the time, I have my own therapist. It's Circle.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful. And do you ever this is kind of hard because with a therapist, you're always listening to the client and so forth. What is it like for you when they have sort of a similar story that you're kind of sorting that through? I mean, what is that like when you're in that session?
Yeah. So our ethics state that if you're struggling with something like that and you're not through it yet, you probably shouldn't be working with that client. So maybe that's part of why I have a therapist. I feel like my anxiety is well managed. There was a period of my time that it wasn't. And it kind of, I stopped working at that point for a little bit. And then, got therapy and was able to get through it. And I think that had a lot to do with the whole hating the system of work and being able to do my own thing. So that was when I switched paths and started my own thing, it changed all that for me. But really, like, anxiety never goes away. Like, it's not a thing that goes away. It's just how you manage it and control it.
And would you say, like, if you had one tip that you could give people that are dealing with anxiety, what would be the first thing that you would say to someone who's just realizing that that's what they're dealing with?
Yeah. Well, that's a great first step. Self-awareness is the first step. So if you're on the path of not even knowing you have anxiety, how are you supposed to fix it? So self-awareness is the first thing. Second thing is then understanding your triggers. What causes my anxiety to get worse? And then working from there.
Excellent. And from that, is that where your workbook was developed? That program was developed?
Actually, in the beginning of our workbook, there's a whole little story section that says exactly this process of what I went through, panic attacks and having anxiety. And then it talks about Mary's story as well.
Excellent. And so with that, now we're going to bring Mary in, and Mary, tell us a little bit about your business and your journey to get into that business, and then we'll bring them both together.
So it's funny because Patty and I, we were very close growing up. We shared a room all the way through college. We even went to the same college together. We double majored English and psych together. And then Patty, I guess we both picked those career paths, but Patty went more therapist route and I went the writing route. I'm a copywriter and marketer, so it's kind of brings that psychology in there too. So I have to understand how people think. I don't I wouldn't say directly help people like Patty does. I help them find a solution to their problems with what I do. And so like our skill set, we kind of came together and decided we wanted to help more people than what we're doing now, which is like more one-on-one work, like, because that's like how it's laid out now. So we were like, how can we help more people? So we decided, let's start moment to moment health. And like, I also have anxiety, And my triggers for anxiety, like growing up, Patty and I were very, very shy. Like we barely talked. And like people in our teachers were like, so what are you going to do when you're older? Like if you don't want to talk, are you going to be a mime? And I'm like, I don't know, I'll figure it out. I'm a writer now, so I don't really talk, right? I just sit at my computer and type all day. So
I'm a therapist, and I don't really talk. I just listen.
So it worked out. But my anxiety usually stems from like large crowds, a lot of people. So like the work environment for me was tough because I'd have to drive an hour or whatever with traffic. So there's a whole bunch of, that's an anxious situation. Your cars everywhere. You have to drive to your office. Then you have to sit in the office for 8 hours with a bunch of other people. And then you have to drive home. So by the time I got home, I was just absolutely exhausted. So that's kind of, and then I was like, I need to find something else for me because I can't do this long term. So I ended up going freelance, and I do freelance copywriting now, and I work at home, on my own schedule now. Obviously have meetings and stuff, but that's what working is, right? So yeah, that's how I got into what I'm doing.
And what inspires you to engage in copywriting every day? Like what's the thing that really, really drives you in that business?
I like writing. Like it's always been, and reading. They've always been an interest of mine. Like as long as I can remember, I've had a journal. And then obviously the helping people component, where I can write something that'll reach someone, hopefully somewhere, that'll inspire them to maybe make a change in their life that they needed to make, and they didn't even know it, or help them find like a coach, or maybe like a supplement or a program that they really need to change their life. So that's why I do it.
Well, I think that's great because you guys have taken both of your backgrounds in psych and moved into this, and you've melded them together for this new program that you have. And one of the things that comes through really, really clear, I know guys grew up, your dad was an attorney, so he was an advocate. And that's exactly what you guys are doing for others through these businesses and through that program. So I think that's wonderful. You're kind of carrying on the tradition in a different way. I'm sure he's very proud.
You know what? That's funny that you say that, because he's always like, who's taking over my practice when I retire? And we're like, we're not lawyers. What's you said that?
Well, what is it? Well, what would it have the two of you, one or the two of you, ever considered going to law school? Was that ever a thought?
No, we just told you we'd never talked in high school and stuff.
We'd have to stand in front of people and talk.
That's true. I guess you do need, unless you're sort of in the background doing the legal research. You could probably,
yeah. If I didn't have to go on the stand, I would be fine. But that's part of the job. So we do have a younger sister who our dad said would be a good lawyer. So
oh, now, so is she looking to do that? Do you think she'll do that?
I don't know. She's more in like PT, like
physical therapy. So she also wants to help people, but she wants to do for more the physical body stuff.
Oh, how interesting. Well, I bet that's an interesting family dynamic when your dad's kind of going, well, who's going to take over? Well, probably through your practices, you might be able to find someone. But that being said, so what now with respect to the program, what inspires you guys to get out there and really get this to the masses? Because that's what we really, I mean, wouldn't it be great if everyone was happy and healthy and engaging in the program in the way that you can get there? So what would you like to tell people that might be interested in that program about the path of it?
Mary, do you want to talk about the gym?
I'll go back to your first question, like what inspires us to do it. Being in the situation ourselves, like I struggled like Patty said, she struggled with anxiety. I struggle with anxiety, and like dealing with those emotions, the negative emotions, I guess, and like trying to push through those to be happier and healthier. Um, because we have that firsthand experience, and we know what it feels like, we want to help other people not feel like that too, so that they can be happier and healthier. So that's like why we're trying to do what we're doing with the workbook.
And I don't want to say advice, but what tips would you give to someone who's on the fence? I really want to engage in this program. What's the, what are the steps? What are kind of I know it's a workbook, so someone's working through the workbook, but what are the aha moments that they might have, or things like that, little elements of the program?
So our whole philosophy is like based off of three main pillars. So we focus on growth, we focus on energy, and we focus on mindset. That's what Patty was referring to, the GEM. That's our GEM framework. So we believe those three things are the keys to a happy, healthy life. So growth, energy, mindset, and all of those things we cover in the workbook.
Mm-hmm.
So like growth, like how are you growing as a person today? How are you fulfilling your purpose on this earth? And energy, how are you able to do those things to the best of your ability? And then your mindset, like our mindset is everything, because if we let the negativity take over, it will. So we have to always like be on the defense with that, and like take it, like knock it down so it doesn't overcome our life. So that's basically why our whole workbook is centered around those three things.
So it's growth, energy, and mindset.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And when you typically see people in your practice, Patty, do you see that a lot of what they're dealing with is related to those areas? Like, can you pinpoint and say, yep, we're going to work on this area this week? Or, I mean, how would that even work in that?
Yeah, I don't usually use my workbook in practice. I could. That actually kind of an interesting idea. But I can see the correlation. Energy usually is like people struggling with depression have an energy issue, a low energy issue most of the time. So can't get out of bed, don't really eat, don't really exercise, don't eat the right things. Like all of that is energy related, and those can be fixed with those energy switches. Makes it tough, obviously, if you're lacking motivation to do so. That comes in with mindset. Mindset is really important. If you want to change, you have to change your mindset. And then growth is obviously everyone's goal in this process of life, trying to grow and become better. When I think growth, I think there's two types of mindset. There's fixed mindset, growth mindset. I think of the growth mindset part of it. So it's really connected to mindset. And actually, we just wrote a blog post on that one. So that's fun.
That's awesome. What do you see in mindset with people that are generally experiencing things like burnout, or just, things where they're just they just feel like they can't get off of that square?
Yeah. With burnout in particular, I do have quite a few clients experiencing that, especially in their working life. They're just like, they have no motivation to go to work. They have no motivation to do their work. They don't even want to do the things that they like. They're like, I don't even want to do the things that I used to love. So then it's like, well, how do you fix that? Take a break from work. Can anyone take a break from work at any time? No, not when you work for someone. When you work for yourself, maybe you can do that. But that becomes a challenge. So let me talk about boundaries and how do we make those boundaries in our workplace. And sometimes that's tough to establish when you're used to doing the same thing for the last few years, and your boss expects a certain level of expectation. it becomes a challenge.
Yeah, I would bet. Because when you're working, it's all about that.
Mhm.
You've got to show up at that office every day, even if you're working remote. Like I know I have one client who said to me at one point in her career, she almost wanted to throw up every day before she went to work.
Mhm.
And she said, she got to the point where she had to leave that position.
Yeah,
But it's very difficult when you're depending on that income.
I did the same thing. I left one of my positions because I didn't want to go. I hated it. I didn't want to go, and that was right before I went into private practice. Um, Sometimes you just need a change.
And sometimes it leads you in a great direction.
The greatest direction of your life. Yeah, at least
But
for me.
also for me, my last like full-time job, I hated every day of working. Different reasons. I had a boss that was I think we hear these stories about narcissistic bosses and things like that.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. But it
That's
really
the
leaves a bad
title,
taste. It leaves a
boss.
bad taste in your mouth, and like you just don't feel good, So why would I continue doing this thing that doesn't make me feel good?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I very much enjoy the term leader instead. Leader, I'll be with you and we'll go together to this point. Boss is like, I'm going to tell you what to do. No one likes that. No one likes that.
Well, that's true. And I do like what you said earlier. And I think this is probably food for thought for a lot of people that are in this sort of position in their lives where they're saying, I just do not want to do this every day. I cannot do this. If they're in the position where they don't have another option at that point, and they can't leave right away, or they can't start a business right away.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of boundaries. Do you have any idea of other things that they could do to make it a little more palatable to be there until they can find the next thing?
I think this is why a lot of people decide to change careers in the middle of their process of work life, because they're burnt out by the position that they're in. I do think setting boundaries is really important. Like, I will be leaving at 4 o'clock today. I will not be staying till 6 o'clock like I normally do. That's like the first step. Understanding that there's always going to be work on your to-do list, also really important. I feel like sometimes we think that we're going to get it all done today and then have a fresh slate for the next day. But no, sometimes we have to set that boundary and saying, we're going to be just done at 4 o'clock and then leave. Talking to your boss could be, leader, hopefully, could be a good thing. Maybe they'll understand. They'll be like, yeah, sure, we can help you out in this way or that way. Another suggestion I gave someone else, delegating tasks. If you have tasks that you don't technically have to complete, giving them to someone else, maybe they can help you out with that. Taking a vacation. I know it's not the easiest, but summertime's a great time for that. Everyone's taking vacations.
Yeah, I think those are wonderful tips, because they're just little vacations away from. And when you go, oh my God, if I know I'm going to leave at 4 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock, it makes it a little more palatable for me to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that those are great tips. And then what about when
I think I have one more.
Oh, you do? Great.
Yeah, I have one more, just from my experience in the workforce and feeling that way at my jobs. Finding something that gives you joy or happiness while you're there. So like for me, when I used to work in an office building, it was a big office building. I would just leave my desk for 5-10 minutes and go on a walk around the office building.
Really good idea.
Just to relax and get away from everything, and take a break. So I could, reset kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could even talk to your coworkers for a few minutes. That's always fun to do too.
Those two things are energy level things, right? So boosting your energy level. when we're going back to the gem with that. So the E in gem, energy level. Those are really good things.
And then the mindset. So what
Same
tips?
thing.
Yeah, it kind of they all feed together, don't they? Like if the
They're very
person's not engaging in exercise, or that'd be a great way to get that back into
We
their
call
life.
it the gem because it's like it's a triangle.
I love that.
So each side of a hole. I just have this on my desk, it's my money pyramid.
I think that's awesome. I do. I think it's wonderful. How do you work with someone when they say, gosh, I just can't do this position anymore. I can't go to this job anymore. I need a different career. How do you help them feed into that other new direction? What's the main things that you guys would suggest for someone in that position?
I think the first thing is like trying to figure out their values. Like, what do they like about this job? Maybe we could get back into like being grateful for the job, because sometimes we get to this place of like a really sour taste to the job, and then it just sours the whole experience. But if you can go back into like, what do you value? What are your goals? Is this job doing those things for you? And if the answer is yes, then maybe you should stay at that job. Maybe you're just burnt out from it and you need to just change your mindset, like we had said. And doing that, we could do that through gratitude exercise. Actually, gratitude is really, really important in changing our mindset. So anyone who experiences depression, I give them homework of gratitude exercises every day. And I do that in my practice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thought. I don't know, Mary, do you have any other thoughts with that?
If you decide that you do want to change, being clear on what it is you do want, like having clarity on the situation. Like if you don't like what you're doing now and you don't like the way your life is now, what could you do to make it the life that you would be happy living?
Mm-hmm.
So like having that clear like mindset on everything. Like what do you want your day to look like? Are you at home? Are you a stay-at-home mom or dad? Because would that make you the happiest if it allows you financially, if you can do that? But
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mary. But in therapy, we call that the miracle question. So if you could wake up tomorrow and have everything you want, what would it look like?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Mary's talking about right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I really like where you went with values, because that's at the crux of things too. That's like at the very, very basic. I know in the work that I do, a lot of times I'll ask people to do a values exercise. And then a lot of times it looks like their life looks different than what their prescribed values are. And when when we grow up, our parents are instilling values on us that they might not necessarily be ours. So we're dealing with that too. So it's hard to uncover that. You're really in an archaeology experiment with a lot of this, aren't you?
Values, they point us to our why in life. So having your why in life is helpful in giving yourself a direction. So Mary talked about clarity. That's clarity, having a direction. I think that's super important. Like you're not going to leave a job if you don't know where you want to go. So uncovering that first is important.
I think that's very key. And how often do you see people that are really situationally depressed just because their life doesn't match their values? And once you start to untangle that and fix that, I bet that makes a world of difference for your clients.
Sometimes it's making one small change at a time. And some people don't understand that. They think they have to change it all at once, but it doesn't have to be like that, because that's really overwhelming. Oh my God, I have to change my whole life. No, let's just make one change, one small change. And that's where our workbook comes in. Like it's a daily daily worksheet and you follow the exercises. It takes what, like 5 minutes, right, Mary? Something like that.
Maybe less.
Maybe
Yeah.
less than that. So do that for 5 minutes a day. See how it changed your life.
And it's almost like a 30-day mental health challenge. So you do it's a 30-day workbook. So you do it every day for 30 days. And the goal is to feel happier and healthier at the end of it.
Yeah. We're not gonna say we're gonna solve all your happiness and health issues, because that's not what we're gonna do. But we want to make it a little bit better. That is the goal.
That's wonderful. And so it's a 30-day challenge, really. And do you think that people, once they do the 30 days, they'll be going back and revisiting the workbook and maybe doing another 30 days and doing it that, because it could be a very good staple in their lives?
This workbook is something that I still do every day. I've been doing it for 2 years. This exact thing, it would be in different places. So it's all in one place. I could do it just in one workbook every day instead of because there's like gratitude, there's like mindfulness, there's reading, there's writing. So I'm doing all of that every day anyway, but now it's all in one place for everyone to do. So it'll make things easier that way.
I think that's terrific, because in writing, you're connecting your hand, your head, and your heart. And when you're going through that every day, that's a huge thing for people to really connect it all. Because when you're in these anxiety situations, or just where you wake up every day and you go, gosh, I don't even recognize this life as to one that I would want. I need to figure it out. And I think it's great to connect the hand, the head, and the heart. And that's a great way to have that workbook structured.
I often give my therapy clients journaling prompts for homework. So I think if you had this workbook, you could do it right in here, because there's a whole page for journaling. But back to your question about what do you do after the 30 days? Ideally, we'd like to create like a membership and have people join the membership. If they like this content, they could do a little more structured of exercises and videos, something online, so it's easier. But yeah, you could always just go back to the workbook for the next 30 days. Or if people love it so much, we'll create a 90-day workbook with different stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a process, isn't it? You're not just gonna go 30 days and fix it all. Like you said, it's step by step. And it's key to realize that. I mean, one of the things I guess I would ask too is, how often are people that are dealing with grief recognizing it as something else? Or do you see that ever coming up when somebody is in sort of that space where they're just not wanting to do anything, or when they're grieving something in their lives or someone?
It does look like depression. I have a few people who they're trying to find their paths in life, and they feel like depressed that they can't get to that point. But it is grief. That is grief, because you're not having the life that you want. See, a good way to get past that is going back to mindfulness. I don't know if I've said anything about mindfulness, but in our workbook, we have a mindful minute. So you take a minute and just be in the moment and enjoy this present moment. And I'm actually reading a book right now called Happiness by, I can't say the author's name, but one of the famous, do I have it with me? One of the famous.
Oh, Thich Nhat Hanh. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And this is all about mindfulness. So just your happiness is in this current moment, and your life is happening right now. It's not happening in the past or the future. So having that mindful minute every day, so important. And obviously you want it more than a minute a day, but so many people don't have mindful minutes in a day. So having it in the workbook can just bring us back to the present moment. And rather than grieving for a life you want and don't have right now. Enjoy the life that you do have right now.
I do love that. I had one, when I was in coaching school, there was this gentleman, he was very crabby. I mean, he was the crabbiest guy you'd ever want to meet. And it was just amazing to me that he was even in coaching school, because I'm thinking, what would, but anyway, so he would sit in the classes, and we would go around our circle, and we were talking, at one point we were talking about life purpose. And he said something really interesting. He said, what if your purpose is what you're doing right now? Like if you're cleaning the toilet, that's your purpose. If you're a janitor and that's your job, that's your purpose. And it was very interesting to me, because it really kind of just removes that whole, well, I've got to be doing this huge thing that's going to leave this big legacy. And I think people are really kind of wrapped up in that. And how much easier is your life when you realize what you're doing right now? If you're helping somebody in this moment, that's your life purpose. How do you feel about that? Do you think that feeds into that same mindset that Thich Nhat Hanh talks about?
Yes, it does. Your happiness is in this moment. And I mean, I would recommend this book to anyone. It's really good. Anyone with anxiety, mindfulness would help a lot. Depression. Yeah. Grief. You're grieving a life you've never had. Get this book. It's really good. Or just be mindful for a minute. But it's tough. It's tough to sit in the present and be like, here I am. That's tough sometimes for people to do that. Or to accept that they don't have what they want, I guess.
And how often do people finally get what they want and they find out that that's not what they wanted?
Yeah, all the time. It's because you're always going after that thing, and then when you get the thing, you're still going after another thing. Rather than just being like, I love where I'm at right now. I do maybe want to get to this point, and I'll think about that, but I'm enjoying this moment right now.
And I'm sure that the wellness, happiness and wellness and all of that, the workbook, the program, that's going to help people really focus on what they truly do want.
Got to get clear on what you want in order to get to it.
Well, overall, if you had one tip that you would each like to share with our listeners, what would it be?
Mary, go first.
To share for like what?
Just overall, walking that path
like
to
happiness and health secret.
Yes, just one secret.
I guess like both of us, we took a leap of faith and we quit our jobs. So if you're really not happy at your job, there are other options out there. So don't be afraid to take the leap and do something that you've never done before, because it could be the change that, will change your life forever. And you can have that life that you've always imagined with that one change.
I love that. On the other hand, if you could think about gratitude and why you're grateful for the job you currently have, maybe you change your mindset on where you're at in your life. Similar to the story of the guy who says, my purpose is right here.
Yeah. So it's all about, clarity is huge. When you have even in any kind of a communication, when it's not clear, it's anybody's guess on how the other person is going to take it. And if you're not even clear with yourself about what you really want, that's a big deal.
It's a marketing. That's a thing in marketing. We say a confused mind never buys. So if you're confused as to what the offer is, you're gonna be like, I don't know if I want it because I don't know what it is. So it's very similar that's a very similar thing to like being clear on what you want, and then you get what you want. You know, the dream board situation.
Yep, the vision board, there's so many wonderful sites out there where you can even create that for yourself. You can do I forgot the name of the one site, but there's one site out there where you can create your own movie, a mind movies.
I've heard of
That's
them.
awesome.
Yeah, it's excellent. You can do it. And I believe it is a free site where you can create your own mind movie. So exercises like that are so wonderful to get people back to center and happy and loving their lives again. So how would people get a copy of your workbook? Where do they find it? Where can they go?
You can find us at happinessandhealthsecrets.com. We have a blog on there for additional free resources, and our workbook is on there. And we're gonna be launching our coaching soon. And like if people want one-on-one coaching or group coaching, we're gonna be offering that, and all of that will be on there. We're also on social media, but our social media is Moment to Moment Health.
Not to be confusing.
Yeah, not to be too confusing, but yeah.
Well, and besides the workbook, you are both working on other things. How do people get in contact with you if they want to work with you as a copywriter, and if you want to work with Patty as a therapist?
Well, right now you have to be in Connecticut if you want to work with me. I guess you would just like search my name, Patty Sciglimpaglia-Vigue.
And I will.
That's a tough one.
I will put the links to both of your businesses as well.
Yeah.
You could probably just email me at marybrainard22@gmail.com or mary@marybrainard.com, whichever is easier.
Well, excellent. It has been wonderful to chat with you ladies today, and you've shared some very, very valuable things for our listeners. And I want to thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thank